My name is Julio Purcell. I am a senior property manager at McKinsey Management Company, and I chair the Building Operations Committee for BOMA. I'd like to welcome you to this morning's presentation, Building Enclosure Safety and Performance Seminar. Mark Howe will be our moderator, and you will be conducting he'll be one of the presenters as well. First of all, I'd like to thank you all once again for coming, and I'd like to welcome our sponsors. If you're here, if you would stand up to be recognized. Can-Am Building Envelope Specialist, Valport Building Services, Valport, Firescape Engineers,
yeah,
and BCS, of course, Mark. This is going to be a little bit of a plug for BOMA. This is a free event. This was free for non-members, and we're hoping that you do consider joining BOMA. I'll pass out this flyer to give you a very brief description of what BOMA is all about. But there are very many benefits to joining BOMA. As an associate member, clearly you get to meet lots of property managers and other building management executives. We have numerous network opportunities over the course of the year. Our next BOMA event is managing the challenges of mixed-use properties. And that's Thursday, September the 21st, from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And that'll be held at the Renaissance Baltimore Harbor Place Hotel. Hopefully you all will take a look at the website and perhaps sign up for that event. Okay, with that, I will hand over the podium to Mark Howe, who has kindly agreed to put this presentation and seminar together. I think it'll be quite worthwhile, and he's going to offer a wealth of knowledge to us all today. Thank you.
Great. Well, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to come and participate in a seminar that I put together along with some of my other friends here at some of these other organizations. And it really kind of came together because of this constant need of resources that deal with the building enclosure. And as time goes on, enclosures are not only getting more complicated, but all the things that we have to do with or to an enclosure continues to become more complicated and more challenging. So the presenters that I wanted to bundle together are people who are really going to focus on, so we have an enclosure, what do we do with it? There's certain things we can do, there's certain things we can't do. So in the basic order of things, I brought in a company like ourselves that makes sure things can't fall off, or if they do fall off, what do we do with them? If they leak, what do we do if they leak? But even before we do that, we need to probably hang it from the building, which is a rooftop anchor. And that's probably one of the bigger things that we're seeing right now that is kind of an unknown, that unfortunately we have some difficult conversations with some of our clients about is these roof anchors. And we're going to have one of the leading people in rooftop anchor design coming as well. Then we have something that's completely out of the blue that I'm sure you guys never hear of that often, or maybe at all, which is my buddy Cisco from Firescape Engineers. He's going to inform you a little bit about those pesky fire escapes and what really we need to do with those. Again, those are attached to the enclosure, right? And last but not least, if you have air leaking out of your building, strong chance you have water leaking into the building, right? So we have Can-Am come in here and talking to us. And what is a presentation without keeping the water off the roof? So thankfully I have Tremco over lunchtime and then Mission Barbecue talking to you guys a little bit about ways to take care of roofs and what to do with them. And last but not least, I don't see my friend Blair here yet, but when you have all these jobs, guess what you need? Money, right? So Claire's going to talk to you about the PACE program and how the PACE program can actually help you fund some of these projects. So if you can tell, all these things intertwine with each other. You really can't do one without the other one, and they all support one another, and sometimes you have to do one of these things before you even get to the next. So today we're going to go, this big fire hose of information. Typically I used to leave the lunch feed, everybody kind of wandering around during lunch, but to be honest with you, we could never get anybody to really network well. So we figured we'd give you even more information over lunch, and that's what we're going to have CBJ Energy and Tremco talk to you guys about their two topics while you're chowing on some Mission Barbecue, and from there if you're vegan.
Good job.
The day's going to go pretty quick. Before you know it's going to be 2 o'clock. All the speakers will mill around here and be happy to answer any of your questions. We'll have 3 presentations first. and then we're going to jump into getting some growth. So this is for AIA credits. It is a program that was submitted and approved by the AIA. I'm not going to bore you with all the learning and course objectives. They are out at with Maddie at the desk inside. So if you do need these for any reason, just go out there and pick up a copy of them. But the first presentation, as we mentioned, is going to be about facade inspections. And what's important about facade inspections is before you talk about facade inspections, we hear other terms floating around, especially, I'm going to say, up in the Northeast more than anything. So facade inspection is one thing, facade ordinance is another thing. They're part partial, one is of the other, but really, we're going to talk about specifically facade inspections because there's something missing in most of the cities here in Maryland and Virginia and DC. So facade ordinance is a piece of legislation. That's really the best way to look at that. It's enacted by a municipal authority. There's a specifying authority that really dictates what needs to be done. And that's important to understand, right? So the ordinance has it's a piece of legislation, specifying authority, and there's some program that they tell you what they want from the frequency of inspection, right? Every 5 years, every 2 years, all kinds of different types of things. And we're going to talk a little bit about ordinances just so you're exposed to them, but know that it doesn't matter if you're from down here because we have them, right? There are no ordinances anywhere around here. But it's important to understand how we get to the context of what a facade inspection should be. A part of an ordinance is a facade inspection, but a standalone facade inspection is simply a way to be proactive or reactive to a requested inspection on a building. Sir?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could turn down the amount of light, it's a little hard to see.
Yeah, I think there's actually right back here. You see them over there? You press the one, they both go down. Thank you. No problem. And what's most important about facade inspections, there's no specifying authority. Welcome to the Wild Wild West, right? You need a facade inspection, you better figure out a scope, because there is no way to really tell you what to do if there's not an ordinance and a specifying authority. Facade ordinance background. So why are we even mentioning facade ordinances, right? Well, things fall off buildings. We all know that, right? That's a pretty common topic. There's a gentleman that I heard of through AST, my friend's AST. I'm unfortunate I didn't get a chance to know him well. Thankford Grimm had mentioned that masonry falls off a building facade somewhere in the United States about every 3 weeks. That's a real opinion of his, but I'm going to tell you it's more than a real opinion. Because just this week we've had 2, one in Pennsylvania and one yesterday in Baltimore that nobody knows about, right? So that's the key to it. These fall off all the time, nobody knows about it. Kind of either the property manager kicks it underneath the desk, or or something happens, right? Nobody really looks into it too much. Mandatory facade orders have been created in several cities in response to these occurrences that have happened. Back in the 70s, we're not going to get into the whole history of facade ordinances, but back in the 70s, when things started falling off buildings, that's when ordinances started to be a part of certain cities. The tragedy is what's most common about all the ordinances that people put into effect is because people died, right? Pedestrians died, property got destroyed. It's not uncommon to hear the story of how lucky it was. That stone fell over there, boy, we're lucky. There's a lot of luck, but there is a lot of death, and that's kind of the challenge. And I don't know of one ordinance, and maybe somebody can tell me, I don't know of one ordinance that has actually been enacted proactively that isn't based in death. So that's kind of shitty, right? Think about that. We basically wait until somebody dies to do things. So there's 12 of them in the country, 12 cities. This big giant country, we have 12 ordinances, that's all. And the ordinances, again, are proactive inspections on some sort of frequency to identify life safety issues on buildings. That's what the ordinance is all about. Each city ordinance offers a different type of rule, though, right? That there's, you go each one and you get a different thing. I brought this up. A friend of mine, Kelly. Is Kelly here? Let me see her. Kelly owns and runs a company called Vertical Access. Good company, good people. They're the ones that hang off the building. But she has a really good website which helps you kind of go through. If you're interested in learning more about facade inspections, she has a good program that shows you all the cities. And then if you go city by city, she put a little bit of a summary here. Like Boston is 70 feet every 5 years. Chicago is 80 feet between 4 and 2. So you can tell that every one of these cities has a different deal, right? How they did it. And I'll be honest with you, and I know this is why we're here as a part of BOMA. BOMA had a critical impact each one of these cities on how much of this ordinance means what and what frequency and how tall are the buildings. There's a lot of interaction between code officials, property managers, engineers, architects, and the community generally on how do you make these codes. It's definitely not a point and shoot. We don't say, hey, we're going to have an ordinance and they give a plan of what the ordinance should look like or do. So again, good resource if you want to go to Kelly's website. I like it. It's a real quick study. Plus she has all the hot links to all the cities if you want to see them. So as I said, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia, who's all from those locations? Right? We have nothing. We have no facade words. We can rely on our architects and our engineering community to be able to be reactive and try and preach proactiveness, which is what we're trying to do today. Let everybody know about productivity. So in being proactive, what does that mean? What do we use if we don't necessarily have guidance of an ordinance or an authority telling us what to do? And I'll just give you a brief background. I was part of ASTM for years. I'm still a member. I don't go as much as I used to. But I was part of 655 with Jeff Birdley and Michael Friedman, two really good guys, co-chaired a task group who specifically put together a standard from ASTM for facade ordinance and facade inspections, I should say. So the standard that they created was 2270, the standard practice for periodic inspection of buildings for building facades for unsafe condition. It's pretty, I'm going to say that's it's the Bible, but it's only 6 pages long. It's very long. But it's enough to give you some context of what you should do if you don't have a specifying authority, right? You don't have anybody to tell you what to do. This is a great document to use. They designed the document, and when we voted on the document, what the hopes is that by 2017, we'd have more than 12 cities with a facade ordinance. It didn't work, right? They went to International Code Council, tried to talk to them about it. They went through the whole lady who got the cut path with the piece of glass falling out, told all the horror stories. You know, they were not interested in implementing it in the national codes, so now you have to let the municipalities try and fight it out or figure out if they want to have one or not. And in DC, Virginia, and Maryland, they're not interested. We've approached the city even of Baltimore, and I think there's some interest there, but it's not an easy conversation to have. If you're a property owner who have multiple properties, it's not like these things happen for free with a drone and it doesn't, right? So unfortunately, it's a lot of hands-on stuff. So what does that mean to us? Because we, in the tri-state area here, very rarely get the phone call to be proactive, right? So what do we wind up with? Well, we wind up with the calls, right? Can you come down now? You know, those kind of phone calls. I put these up here just to kind of show you a couple. I'm trying not to specifically talk about each particular one, but top left, let's see if I can get this thing to pick up. This one has a little pointer on it over here. Yeah, so interesting part about this, might look familiar. This chunk of stone that fell off was 4 feet by 14 inches deep by about 8 inches thick. That fell off through a lay light into an office space that was occupied an hour before by the mayor of the city. So big crash, bang, boom, right? Next thing you know, we're out there touching the building, making sure that nothing else is falling off. Significant piece of stone, like in the news type of thing. The one to the right, I put the violation up here too. One of my most favorite buildings in the city that we're in, I'm not going to mention it, but they have a metal cornice up there, which is very ornate, very beautiful. Piece of the metal cornice fell off. And we're not even talking about a big piece, just a little enough to fall and have somebody notice it. What was great is that they did get eyes on it. They did get a violation, but if you notice the date here, we still haven't done anything quite yet to it. The other thing too that I thought was interesting from the city, which I feel bad a lot of times because I think the city guys, this is complicated stuff. And if you're an engineer and architect that doesn't deal with this every day, they're not sure what to kind of call it or do with it. He called it a gargoyle throughout the northwest gargoyle, not even cornice. You know, so we can help with that kind of stuff as a community, all of us, right? But that's another one where now it's not stone, it's a piece of metal that came down. Far left, this is the one not too far from the Von Vern here. We got caught out originally because these metal pieces, components of the spandrel stone inserts were basically corroding, popping off and falling with like javelins 150 feet through the air onto the sidewalk, right? And when we went down to this building manager's basement to talk to him, we also found stacks of stone and all kinds of other stuff that over the years had fallen off. So this kind of goes undocumented again, unless the news gets a hold of it or somebody gets hurt. The one in the middle is a church not too far. These are giant chunks of stone, 2 foot by 2 foot. Spire up at the top of the church bell tower. Corrosion occurred. it relaxed, and these pieces of stone just tumbled all the way down to the ground. And last but not least, my favorite buildings are old buildings. So don't blame the old buildings because they also have new building issues. This was built 2 years later, soldier core brick falling out of the side of the building, bad construction, right? So it's not just old buildings, it's also new buildings. You can't just blame the old building. That's why I just kind of want to make sure you guys understand. But these are all what? These are all reactive responses because we don't really have an ordinance anywhere around here. So in the news, Steve, we got a little bit lucky here recently. Steve Turner's going to come up and talk to you just a little bit while this loads.
So real quick, so Mark's talked a bit about ordinances and stuff, and while we wait for this commercial, some of the things that I want to touch on is, although there are ordinances, there are responsibilities. Design professionals and engineers, we've got a responsibility to protect the public. So we're required to keep owners aware, the general public, code officials aware, should we identify a condition that's unsafe. There's a real push in the code to marry the owners of a building and those who manage the buildings to making sure things are code compliant, or that you're familiar and keeping aware of the code so that the buildings are upgraded for code compliant. Contractors generally responsible for building code, safety shoring, bracing requirements. So although there's no ordinance pushing and driving, there are great responsibilities in identifying and making the public and code officials aware. So in these niche areas that we're going to really touch on today, if you're not very familiar with the codes and how they change regularly, and they change quite frequently these days, it's important to have those who are professionals who do stay knowledgeable and involved.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure why she's I want to make sure Steve can come up and talk to you guys.
Works presents its
Now it's
best
a
ever
commercial, right? So you guys
comedy.
have to sit through a commercial for a couple seconds. Sorry about that. But part of what this isn't working at all, of course. Let's see. As luck would have it, I put together a facade ordinance presentation, and this Sunday we had a 1,000-pound brick fall building in Pittsburgh. Who all heard about it? It's in the news. Crashed down to the ground. 1,000-pound brick stone. It was on a cornice.
The big story here is that towards that.
Southside Works presents its first
Yeah,
ever
really
comedy
Southside.
music festival on Saturday, August 12th, from 1 to 8 p.m. Come by and check out the cool cars that will line 27th Street.
What I get for getting up early, trying to make sure the cars.
Check Germison Airlines and stop on regular Clarks. Enjoy local food trucks with Hillbrow House serving up beer and cocktails. For more information, visit SouthsideWorks.com or check us out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Treat yourself to the work.
Yeah, we'll just go on. Sorry about that, guys. It was a very interesting interview where what they talked about, and we'll hit it no matter what. What they talked about was traffic. That's what they were worried about. They were very worried that traffic was being held up. Now, luckily, I have a friend of mine who was actually the engineer who got called out to look at this thing. So it's a 1,000-pound stone off of a cornice. Pittsburgh does have a facade ordinance, which is interesting enough. What has been known up in Pittsburgh is that the reporting is in question, whether they really do this actively or pursue it actively. Nobody's out there every day enforcing their ordinance, right? So this is something that was also interesting is if you got a chance to see this, it's a stone cornice and a monorail system where you hang from the building is actually attached to the stone cornice, which is one of the stones that fell off. This monorail goes around the entire building. So there's a lot of challenges to this thing that I think are interesting, especially since that just this past summer they hung off the building and painted all the windows. Painted and caulked all the windows. So it's not like they haven't been looking at this building as a facade ordinance. And with binoculars, you can see the other three corners are having the same issue, same crap right at these outside corners. And the monorail system is basically a steel beam that's attached to the cornice that they hang a trolley from, and that's how the swing gets pulled up from this trolley system goes around the entire building. Bad enough for the stone, the video reinforces all the other issues that are happening. Zip car parking is shut down. Private parking lot shut down. Bank ATM shut down. Overtime for the police, building tenants. So at the end of this video, what they talk about is sitting down, the city talking about sitting down with the client at some point in time, talking about all these additional costs. This has nothing to do with fixing the stone. This is all the other things that happen from having a thing like this happen. Plus, nobody here wants to be in the news, right? So that's the last thing we want. So I think there's something to be said for trying to discuss with clients and internally with your teams about having a proactive facade inspection. And using the ASTM standard really allows you to kind of create your own custom one. Now, this could be if you're a property management company and you're managing properties. This could be a campus or a university that has multiple buildings. It could be somebody who owns one building or runs one building and they want to do something proactively. The standard is really well done. It's very easy to read. The part that we would look at for proactive and reactive occurrences for non-ordinance inspections are the facade inspection procedures. This 5 through 13 is really what we're going to talk about today, and really 5 through 11 is really standard reporting and maintenance of reports have to do with ordinances and cities who expect certain information delivered. So I thought the easiest way to do this is to create my own top 5 lists of what questions to ask. Because I'm telling you, the phone calls we get are, it fell 2.5 hours ago and you come here now, right? And this is people who probably never even thought they had a facade, right? They don't even know what it's made of half the time. So I think there's some fundamental questions when we get involved that we should ask. Plus, I want to make sure building owners are aware of the information they really, really need. And those are going to be the initial conversation points that we have. The first question is, all right, so what kind of inspection do we want? ASTM does a really good job of laying out 2 different types of inspections. A detailed inspection and a general inspection. You can read the definitions here. Detailed inspection is the easiest way to talk about detail is. I'm getting on the building, I'm touching everything. I'm touching everything, I'm doing probes, I'm pulling on anchor panels. I'm really getting my hands on this building. A general inspection is greater than 6 feet. This is binoculars. This is maybe being on a swing stage and looking over at this wall but not touching it. Not touching every element of the building. Easiest way to think about a general inspection. A general inspection is very good for a proactive owner who says, nothing's fallen off. Can you give me a price to give me a general inspection of the building so I can maybe prevent having to be reactive and be proactive. You can do a combination. If you do know that a building has some issues by looking at it with binoculars, maybe a certain drop you do a detail one, certain drops you do a general one. There's a combination of all these things, but most important to understand is which one do you, the context of one. It's either one's further away or one's closer than 6 feet.
Does this address drones at all?
No, I'm not talking about drones whatsoever. So potentially a general inspection could be by drone if you'd like to do something like that. How often to do the actual inspections? We're going to talk about that too, because where we are, there's no ordinances, so there's no rules. This is basically up to the building owner or the manager or the engineer or whatever it may be. There's no ordinance to enact any of these. So for these, you can have a building owner who hasn't touched the building in 50 years, and all of a sudden say, I want a detailed inspection or maybe a general inspection. So, but the first question to ask is, what kind of inspection? There are benefits to a detailed inspection. Right? So even if you do what's wrong in general, there are benefits to it. This is a building that we were able to, you can see the finial all the way at the top, above the dormer, that from the ground looked great. We get to it, it doesn't look too bad. Where's Jimmy? Jimmy's back there. Jimmy weighs like 110 pounds. I mean, skinny as complete. So he's on a 145-foot high reach, and he takes this thing and goes to move it, and it moves. He's just touching it, tactile. I'm touching everything. When Jimmy touches this thing, and it moves, which is curious. He actually puts a lot of effort into it, and pulls the thing off. What you're seeing there is a drill bit. I guess at some point in time, this thing broke, and the fix there was take a drill bit, jam it in the old anchor hole, and put the stone back over top of the thing, and we'll all be good. So, interesting, we would have never found this without a detailed inspection, hands on the building. While we're up there, here's all the other things we pull off the building, right? 5 buckets of stone. This is stuff that we touched and went, oh, it's loose, took with us, right? So it's important to know that you do get a lot out of a detailed inspection. If you call an architect or an engineer, I would tell you that there's a strong chance if something fell off your building, they're not going to tell you to do a general inspection. They're going to tell you to do detail because something's already fallen off, right? Understand that even if you're going to do a proactive inspection, there may be important places to do a detailed inspection and really get your hands on some complex places, right? I will tell you, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, if you have a terracotta cornice, always do a detailed inspection if it hasn't been looked at for a long time. There's some times that you just need to do a detailed inspection. Question 2, and remember these questions because you might actually win something at the end of the presentation. What access is required? This is the most challenging question because there's all forms of access, and we're going to talk about access as quick as we can to get through, just so you're aware of the terminology when you start to hear these things come at you. Because when you get somebody like me, or somebody else here as an art engineer, an architect, or a contractor, and you're going to have a conversation about facade inspections, you're not going to get away without talking about access. It's just how it goes, right? We have yet to invent jetpacks. that actually work for this. So rope descent systems, industrial rope access, suspended solo baskets, suspended swing stages are the big ones where we usually see being used to get on that to do a facade inspection. Question 3, before you really get too deep and select a form of access, is there any possible stabilization required? Usually this is the binocular survey, right? So we know that we need to do the facade, we know we're going to do a general detail, but we need to look up there and see is there any locations we can see by binoculars that we need to put up negative strapping pinning? Is there something already? Why? Because as soon as we figure that out, we might need to go back to question 2 and reconsider what access we're going to use, right? So you might think this is going to be great. We're going to use rope descent systems to do our general inspection. Oh my God, that cornice doesn't look right. So do you want to spend the money to get there with rope access, or do you just want to put a swing stage up in that location? So timing is important. It's also important to reconsider at question 3, have we chosen the right form of access? Question 4, got roof anchors. Because all those things I just talked about, with ropes and suspended things, you need an anchor to tie back to no matter what. And we're going to talk a little bit more, this afternoon presentation is going to go specifically about rope descent systems and anchors, because now it's a law. But in addition to that, we have issues for tying back solo baskets, suspended swing stages. And you really do have to understand what's on the roof. So if you have a deep cornice, is there electric on the roof? And then you always have to ask the question, so where do the window washers tie off to? Not that you want to tie off there, because you never know window washers. So where is the RDS system get attached to? And maybe that'll help you kind of understand it. But you got to have that conversation about roof anchors, because if you have no way to tie back, it's going to be more challenging, and you have to get an engineer involved to figure out how do we actually tie off all these pieces of equipment they're using for the inspection work. So we're going to hit different types of access real quick. RDS is rope descent systems, Bosse's chair, window washer, right? That's what I do. That's me on the right. I'm used to that stuff. That's what I can do and I'm capable of doing, and I've done that most of my career. The one on the left, that's what somebody from Kelly's actually company. That's called industrial rope access. Similar to, a little bit more flexible. You can go side to side. Think about mat climbing. Window washers, mat climbing. That's kind of the easiest way to think about the difference between those two kind of systems. They both work. They both can get you somewhere. This is the least costly way to get on a facade and get your eyes on it. Now, what you don't want to be is be on a RDS system and pull on a piece of stone and have it in your hand. Not a good time, right? So IRA actually gives you a little bit of capability to be a little bit, have a little bit more flexibility to take smaller things down. But RDS, if you're taking chunks down, they better fit in a bucket, and there better be something you're capable of holding on to. And you should always check with local restrictions, and these has everything to do with how tall is the building. Once you get above 200 feet, 300 feet, these may not be the best form of access to get there in the first place. You can also have the solo basket, which is just a one-man basket. Beam goes out, plates go in the back, go over the solo basket. Think about the buildings in drops. This is the way all of us think about things. Everything's in drops. Don't think about floors when we're talking about anything we're going to talk about today except for the roof. Everything else is in vertical drops. And when you hear me say drop, that means whatever the drop might be, a basket, an RDS system, a swing stage, a mast climber. These are all drops on your building. So when I go up to your roof and I check out your roof, you'll hear me say something like, oh, you have like 8 40-foot drops. That means there's 8 swing stages of drops that go around your building. So solo baskets get you one area of a drop, but not a lot. So it doesn't get you a big swipe, right? So solo baskets are not bad. They're a good way to get in one place. Maybe if you're doing a general and then a detailed area you want to get into, then you can use the solo basket to specifically get somewhere you need to get to. The most common ways, honestly, I see, and what I've been involved in, is the suspended swing stages. These are 2-point suspended swing stages. They use beams and weights on the roof, and they hang off the wires and go on outside the building. Remember, roof anchors. Where are we tying these things back no matter what? That's an important part of the discussion no matter what we're talking about now. This is 10 Lake Street. It's one of my favorite projects I've ever done. You can see there we have baskets, we have swing stages, we have mast climbers, we have just about everything you can imagine. We're going to talk a little bit more about these buildings. This is translucent steel frame buildings. Awesome, beautiful, gorgeous, pain in the ass to rig, right? Just because they're all set back. There's all kinds of roofs. It takes you a lot of effort to figure out where am I getting on this building, how am I going to get to it. And then last but not least, this is an earthquake response from years ago. What was that? How long was the earthquake now? 8 years ago? More than that. So this one was where we used an aerial lift platform and a crane to start to take down pieces of the bell tower that had fallen down. I will tell you, as soon as you get to aerial lift equipment and cranes, street closures. Oh, You know, and you know, we worked for the city with the Department of Transportation, and that was, I wish I could do that all the time, because they were very, we just walked across the street, talked to them, and they were good, and came across the street, told us what to do. You know, it's nice when you work for the city, but if you don't, this is gonna definitely be a challenge, shutting down roads, taking lanes, it's not pretty. So even if you have the opportunity to use an aerial lift equipment and cranes, understand all these other moving parts you're gonna have to deal with, and it's road closures. Big one to deal with. You could also get a permanently installed platform. Remember I talked about the monorail on the Pittsburgh project? That was a permanent system. That was a monorail system that was supported on the underside of the corners. You could also have them attached to the top of them. The one on the far right is from North Carolina. This is a tall building where this piece actually has the beam in it, and then they have a bicycle chain and like pedals. And you go like this, and the chain pushes the beam out. And that's what you hang off of. Weird. I mean, you'll see, these are design systems. Every system is different. Get the drawings. A lot of big part of this is it was initially designed. Find out it's been maintained, inspect before you use it. You need to have operator training, keep all the parts and pieces is one of the biggest challenges. I can't tell you how many times I'm walking on a roof and there's no sockets for the davits, or the davits are bent, you know, or something is that. You really do have to have a sense of keeping this stuff all together. Permanently installed platforms are traditionally initial installation, and you will see them around our tri-state area. They are around. But once you get into Philadelphia and really New York City, once you get to New York City, you'll see a lot of permanent systems. That's where you see most of them. But I think you're seeing a lot of them in Northern Virginia as well. Once this whole roof anchor thing comes to fruition, I think you're going to see more and more permanent systems because people know that you're going to have to do something to the roof. You're going to have to maintain it. And if you're an architect, this is going to be a part of what you're going to have to do going forward is what roof anchor system am I using, or what permanent system am I going to put in to get onto the facade to maintain it. Mast climbers are a good one. That's the picture from the bottom of 10 Light Street. That's mini mast climbers. So the difference between the two is just pure size and weight capacity, but sometimes a mini mast will work as well too. Remember, we're talking about inspections, but you can't not talk about what you're going to do to fix the building at some point in time. So that's why it's important to know all these things from a form of access beyond just traditional inspection work. Supported scaffolding is another way. Costly. But you can put a ton of people up here, you can do a ton of work, and you can get off the building pretty quick compared to a swing state where you only have 40 feet and 2 guys, right? So this really does work a lot, but there's a lot of complexities to make sure that you get the right scaffold system. I've already seen people put complete scaffold systems up on buildings, put them too close to the wall, and then the stucco guys can't actually stucco because with the scaffolding too close to the wall. You got to understand the work, and you have to think through the process if you're going to use supported scaffolding. And then you can think outside the box. This is the W Hotel in New York City that initially when they had a scope of work, we worked with a company who designed these giant masts that came up, supported the scaffolding on the mansard roof, and then in between we hung swing stages to get to the facade, which is pretty cool. Or this happens a lot in bell towers. You don't have the scaffold all the way up to the ground, put beams to the belfry and scaffold. These are all ways to kind of get there to do the work. And again, yes, this is beyond facade inspections, but you have to get the context of what's going to come next, and that's what we're trying to make you aware of. Again, hoist. And the last question, what's below? So this is all fine and dandy, but we got to figure out what's below, which you really got to look into overhead protection. Again, tri-state area, guess what ordinance you have for overhead protection? Exactly that, nothing. There is nothing. So when I get nervous as an engineer, if I got some hokey contractor putting a swing stage up and he has the old caution tape and cones on the sidewalk, that's not sidewalk protection. You know, I need a canopy, right? So you got to really understand who you're working with to make sure you're going to get yourself in a good situation and not put the owner at risk. All these 5 questions will be more than you will ever spend on me or you or any other architect and engineer in the room. The money is what we just talked about, those 5 things. Nobody cares about our services usually because they're going to have sticker shock when they find out it's $100,000 just to get on the wall, right? Things like that are a big deal. So keep these 5 questions in mind. Those are going to be the money questions. So now we're going to go through, as quickly as we can, who does facade inspections. Usually a qualified professional architect, engineer. Qualified inspector would be the guy on the building. But remember, not all contractors or design professionals are made equal. I love my new construction architects and engineers. They're friends of mine. I'm friends with them. But they are not restoration and preservation engineers or architects. We are a weird sub-chapter, redheaded stepchild of the industry. So make sure you're actually getting somebody who's familiar with transitional steel frame buildings and 1105 testing and alma nozzles. If they're not talking like that, you've probably got a new construction architect or engineer, which is fine. They're just going to have a giant learning curve when they deal with removing and reinstalling precast panels or something crazy like that, right? So just be aware that there is a group of people that only do these odd things, whether it is a new building with something falling off or a building from 100 years ago. So ASTM defines as a facade the exterior of the building, except for horizontal roof areas, and they talk about this thing of appurtenances. And my buddy Cisco is going to be talking about a very important appurtenance, which is a fire escape to get off the building. He's going to talk about that later, but it also includes penthouse walls, chimneys, and so forth. So that's what they consider as a facade. But remember, again, we have no ordinance, so this is up to us for interpretation. And I'll tell you, every time that somebody asks me for a facade inspection, very rarely am I not going to look at the roof, because it's connected, right? So it's very difficult to not pay attention to the roof when it has holes in it. So if we don't have a facade ordinance, we don't have anybody telling us what to do, what's a good resource to figure it out? I know there's a couple of you guys here that have campuses, multiple buildings on a campus. This is a great resource that's in the ASTM standard that kind of goes through what's the material of the building, what's the age of the building, and what kind of inspection and level and what extent it should have, and then it categorizes it. So imagine you have 40 buildings on your campus. You can basically take this information and categorize each building and have some sort of context on how to proceed with a proactive maintenance program. I have it in mind now. It's probably 15 years ago, I did with Penn State University. We sat down at the beginning to talk about facade inspections. That was the beginning of them beginning to categorize each of their buildings to do something proactively. Because again, State College, no ordinance, right? They're just going to do something proactive to make sure they're keeping themselves out of risk. Some of the steps that you need to take advantage of, or pay particular close attention to, is review the project documents. City Hall was awesome. They had everything. It was like the motherlode, right? Everything they had, they were like, here's the original history of construction and dedication book, right? Ask anybody here who's an architect or engineer. We also get the pile of crumpled up drawings in the corner with water stains, right? So we know, just yesterday I looked at one that fell off the building, and they had no drawings, right? It's 1905 construction, nothing. They don't even have a roof plan for me, right? No roof plan, no elevations. So when you get these drawings, you can do something like this. This is a grid layout. So we create this grid layout so we can begin to gather the information. So again, this is preparation inspection drawings. The inspection drawings should also be maybe some close-up photos. But I'll tell you, this is usually the first thing we do is how do we lay out this building. And then once you do that, upper right-hand side, you'll see one of the grids that fall into that, right? So that allows us to take a sheet of paper, record some information for that specific grid. Could be the terminology, unit of measuring quantities, photo management technology. This kicks off gathering all your data and allows you to know where all these specific things are going from. Kelly's not here, but she's got a pretty cool access thing called TPAS too, and that's a computer system where they don't have a paper. Basically, everything comes up on the tablet and rock and roll, which is good. It's a good investment if you have the capability and the client willing to pay for it. But they're fast, they do a good job, so you can have higher technology as well. It doesn't matter technology. You need elevations, you need to grid them, you need to gather the data consistently, and you have to be able to make sure everybody can share it properly. When you're organizing the data, this is, other than what kind of inspection, this is another thing to talk to people about. Again, no ordinance, no specifying authority, so you have to have a conversation about what data do they want, right? The biggest thing that we do is we use ASTM's 2270 to have the conversation about how to classify things. The first one is ordinary maintenance. You can read that. So it's not an unsafe condition or required and repair stabilization. It says ordinary maintenance. Point this, caulk this, paint that, right? You see them on all the buildings. Requires repair stabilization. It's a condition at the time of the inspection that shall be required to stabilize in order to prevent progression into an unsafe condition. So requires repair stabilization is when you do banding, pinning, netting. You're putting something up to make sure something doesn't fall off. You're gathering enough information to go to the ground and have a conversation on how to fix that. Anybody here who's a design professional know this? You have to have the conversation about what temporary means. Because I've had some people have temporary for 10 years, right? So that's not temporary, right? Temporary is like, that's going to stay up there for 3 weeks until we design something to fix it, right? There's no ordinance. In the ordinances, if we had one, it tells you what you need to do. We don't have that, so we have to have that conversation with clients to make sure they really understand what does temporary mean. You can establish the next expense when it needs to be repaired, but requires repair stabilization is an important step. And then unsafe condition, and again, this is a condition at the time of the inspection that could harm you. So that's going up to a piece of terracotta, doing what Jimmy did with the finial, right? Whoa, this is loose, okay, we're done. So now that is, actually, that's no longer an unsafe condition, and now it's ordinary maintenance because there's no threat. There is nothing that's going to require stabilization. May require repair, but it all depends on what you want to do. That's the other statement to kind of have. We have a lot of clients, let's see what was on that slide. We have a lot of clients that really, because there's no ordinance, they're not necessarily interested in the preservation and restoration program. They just don't want anything else to fall off anytime soon, right? So you really have to have that conversation with yourself, your client, or your leadership, or your management, or the design professional. Like, what's your expectations of that? Is it just to be done, and then we don't have to worry about anything falling off, or we're actually getting enough information to put a plan together?
Well, go back to the last slide when you say an unsafe condition. Truly, any design professional, licensed professional, has to report that
To the owner.
and possibly
Building
worry
authority.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's an unsafe condition it's again, conversation you have to have. Without an ordinance, there's no instruction. So no matter what, if you have an unsafe condition, you absolutely have to bring it up to your client. And if you have overhead protection, swing stations up, and all those kind of things moving, then usually that's good enough to get to the next step. But if you're up there with binoculars, if you're on the ground doing a general inspection and you find an unsafe condition, everything gets shut down, you go to your owner and let them know. In a detailed inspection, you're there already, you can do something to make safe that unsafe condition. Surface history, understanding the past and present water filtration activity is an important part. If you don't have an ordinance or a governing authority telling you what to do, most clients don't want to talk to you about interior leaks. They want you to get out on the outside of the building and don't let anything else fall on somebody's head, right? So without that ordinance, we do have to try to push sometimes to make sure people know that a part of this is supposed to be where you have leaks, because leaks can help pinpoint us where we need to focus on inspection and investigation work. Real quick, because I got to get through this program, but steel frame buildings are my favorite buildings in the entire world. I love them better than anything older or newer. I think they're fun, they're interesting, and they're exciting. But they're exciting for me and not for building owners usually, because it's complex. The worst thing that I've seen over the years is anybody who's actually improperly unmaintained terracotta. They do more damage. I've seen more damage done by maintenance people onto terracotta than I've ever seen terracotta do to itself. Once you start caulking mortar joints, once you start coating over the terracotta, once you start running membrane up the back of parapet walls that have terracotta, you can destroy terracotta in 5 years by doing the wrong thing. And that could be terracotta that's 100 years old, right? So just be aware, if you have terracotta in your facade, it's quirky and it's beautiful, but there's some real systemic things you gotta look for. If you see cracking and you fix the crack, you're not fixing the problem. Most terracotta issues are steel corrosion, which you can't see. All you see is the crack. So it's a challenge to discuss, but believe me, this center picture kind of shows you how this stuff's put together. It's hung on steel. Steel corrodes, steel gets wet, steel corrodes. There you go. Which brings me to this point, chicken and egg, right? Does it crack and leak? Does it leak and crack? It doesn't really matter. Because if one happens, the other one's going to happen. Not sure which one came first, but we'll tell you that an interior leak survey will help you understand at least the result, and then you can get out there and you can really start to look for it. There is a whole entire section, and we have Can-Am here that's going to talk about air leakage. Again, if it's leaking air, it's leaking water. If it's leaking water, it's corroding. It's doing all kinds of nasty things, mold, mildew, all kinds of things. So even though we're on for a facade inspection, you have to take the time to understand what kind of water infiltration occurrences may be having. Difficult conversations, again, I'm going to reinforce this one. We just heard this 2 weeks ago. I'm not looking to put a preservation plan together. I just don't want anything to fall off for the next 5 years. This is a hotel company who buys hotels and sells hotels. What they don't want is they don't want to kill anybody, and whatever we fix, they don't want to see the netting and the strapping and the pinning. All they know is when they're done, they just we'll sell this thing. Just make sure it looks okay and nobody's going to be hurt and move on. That's cool. You have to have that conversation beforehand, and it might not be pretty, because they're going to feel like you're, as a part of the team, you might be attacking them because they don't care about the building. They might care about the building, but for them it's an investment. They don't care about the terracotta and the preservation of it, right? They just want to make sure that it's a marquee building and they can do the best they can with it. The financial investment for the 5 questions are important to talk about. because sometimes they don't want you to look at ordinary gains, and then I try to explain to them, well, you're spending $100 grand for me to touch things, why would you want to spend, a couple extra $1,000 to have me document all this stuff so we can put a repair project together? I'm telling you, it's not an easy conversation, because usually around here, it's reactive, not proactive. It's not like they have a budget for it, right? If we actually had the chance to have these conversations early on and set a budget, I'm sure people would have us do this, but because most of the stuff is reactive, it's bad enough they have to go ask for money, let alone ask for money for a preservation program. So, I got one of these. What is defined as a general inspection? Anybody remember? How about anybody else? Anybody else got an answer for what's a detailed inspection? Touching everything, right? All right. I'm glad people pay attention. That's important. I'm not even going to get into these. This is all the stuff. Everything we just talked about, what haven't we talked about? What the hell do I do when I get on the swing stage? When he gets on the swing stage? I haven't even got there, right? These are all the crazy things we need to do when we get up there. Pull, push, look, sight line, and field. All kinds of things we need to do when we get up on that swing stage, high reach, Bossier share, whatever it may be, right? There's a litany of things we need to do. So, question one, I gave it away. So who has a good answer for the top 5 mark questions? Can you think of one of the top 5?
What kind of inspection?
Okay. Everyone sees soda glasses. What else? Anyone else got a good one?
What access is required?
How else? Anybody else?
Any possible stabilization required?
Yeah. And if it is, what do you need to do then?
Got roof anchors?
Got roof anchors. There you go. I think I have enough. I know what you're saying. And who had this? Rita? I will get you in there. So, that's important, what's below, right? So, that's my presentation. I know that we have limited time. Sorry to rush through it as much as I did. We're going to bring on my buddies from Can-Am, right, Steve? Yep. You're up next. Who else did I miss anybody? Yeah. And Steve, I'm going to set Steve up, and then let Steve introduce himself and his company, and we will get you guys underway to the next presentation.